Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Lana and I like to talk about movie costumes and even make some when I have time. Today I'm diving into the second part of House of the Dragon. I try to cover as many costumes as I can. I try to talk about any cool features that they might have and any historical influences that I can notice, and let me tell you, this show has quite a few and they're really interesting. So if you want to hear more, keep watching. Also, if you want to see the costume analysis from the first half of season 1, I have the video right here. I cover Alicent's green dress, Rhaenyra's riding outfit, wedding dress, I compare the outfits to medieval styles and all that fun stuff, so you can check out the first part after you're done with this video. But now, without further ado, let's get into it. First, I have to mention something that would technically fit better in part 1. I had no idea at the time, but apparently there was a deleted scene with Alicent's wedding dress. It sadly didn't make the cut, but the dress was made, the hair was up, the tiara was on, and we can't really see the full dress that well, but there is this blurry shot that I managed to find, and this one, though I think at this point the dress is still in the process of alteration since the top looks quite different. But regardless, I had to mention it because I adore these dragon wings on her shoulders. They look so cool, so well made, and they're beautifully incorporated into the dress design. We get a classic white, which historically wasn't really a thing until Queen Victoria, I believe, but we also see the red on the inside of the sleeves, which is such a nice detail that, symbolizes her marrying into the Targaryen family. I hope we get this scene at some point with crisp quality stills of the full dress because it's such a lovely piece. Okay, now really, second half of season 1, let's go. In episode 6, and I think at least one other time, we see Alicent in this dress. It's a very interesting silhouette, quite medieval, no surprise, but made from this leather-like fabric with a dragon scale pattern. This dress, like basically all of the House of the Dragon costumes, is a very cool mix of historical silhouette and contemporary fabrics. It makes her look very strong, but also very restricted, as opposed to this next dress. Here we have this teal color dress, which is a lot more romantic, less restrictive, more flowy dress, and I think it's interesting because in this scene, Alicent is allowed to talk freely, express her feelings more freely in regards to Rhaenyra, and I like how the dress works hand in hand with this, whereas in the previous scene when she was wearing the other dress, she was perhaps more restricted in terms of what she was allowed to say. It's a simple gown, but beautifully embroidered around the neckline, and if you look closely, you can see that the fabric, although one color, actually has some sort of texture or lines going down, just a shade darker than the rest of the dress, which is really cool because it adds some depth. I love the sleeves too. It's basically a bishop sleeve with a slit, but I don't think sheer fabric like this would be common in the medieval times, at least in Europe. Let me know if you have any idea which era and culture this sleeve could originate from. Maybe something Ottoman? I honestly don't know, but it looks beautiful. Next, we have Rhaenyra in this silver dress with red trimmings. This is another one of those dresses that have a lot of texture in the fabric itself. It's a thicker fabric, and the red pop of color is a Targaryen staple, and the style of the dress is, surprise surprise, another pretty medieval silhouette, with the fitted sleeve underneath and a split sleeve on top. There's basically just two colors, but there's still enough going on, and I think it's an interesting choice. In episode 7, I really love this yellow vest that Aemond is wearing. It looks so detailed, it's got all this brocade, the embroidered crest. You could stare at it for an hour and still you'd be finding something new among the details. It's a really cool piece and I can imagine a lot of work went into it. This one also deserves a mention. Rhaenyra's dress, which is almost black but with a dark reddish sheen of the fabric. They decided to give her this texture down the front and around the wrists, which I think makes it stand out, and I love the different creative ways of evoking something dragon-like. I don't know if this style has any particular historical influences, but I love the fact that she appears to be wearing something underneath, probably that red dress we see her in a later episode, as the color suggests. What Daemon is wearing, I believe, is a leather doublet. I'm not that versed in men's fashion, so feel free to correct me. If it is a doublet, it would be more of a Tudor thing, or at least very late medieval era. But this garment is very much in line with what Daemon usually wears, and he definitely wears this outfit more often during the course of the show, which is again one of those cool details that make the costume more believable, since you really get the feeling that these are just their clothes. Okay, now onto some more interesting stuff. In episode 8, we see Rhaenys in this deep blue dress. I had to brighten up the picture, but the color is so lovely and it looks like parts of the dress are probably velvet. It has this rich gold brocade going down the front, and I like how they stay true to this sort of design for Rhaenys. Just a wide strip of embroidery or brocade down the middle, down the front. That's a very Rhaenys thing. The necklace is also very interestingly incorporated into the design, and the belt is cool, though I'm not sure why it's asymmetrical. As far as historical influences for this dress go, I suppose late medieval era, maybe even Russian 16th century, something like these examples here. Aemond's black and gold doublet is also pretty cool. It holds a nice shape and it's decently embellished, so looks pretty nice. I don't have much to say here, only that, yeah, it looks good. Next we have Lucerys and Jacaerys. Just look at the cool texture on the fabric here. And then more importantly, we have them in these cloaks. I couldn't get a better picture of this, but you can even see how decorated the lining underneath is with this leaf pattern. And of course they both have these dragon pin closures at the neck, and even some decoration around the hem, around the border. They're such simple cloaks, but they look great. Next in this episode, I want to point out something interesting on this servant girl's outfit. So she's got a red dress underneath and this linen overlayer. But what this overlayer is basically a medieval sideless surcoat, I believe. It developed around the 14th century, and it's easy to recognize it by the exaggerated armholes and another gown underneath. I always love to see them incorporate actual medieval styles and features. It gives the show a sense of consistency, and it's such a cool little detail. Now, let's look at Rhaenyra's outfits in this episode. One of my favorite looks of hers is this vibrant red dress. It has a historically inspired arm design, as I mentioned in my part 1 breakdown, but there's nothing underneath in this case. Historically, you would have an underlayer like a chemise, but I think this does well in this universe, and I kind of like the idea of the younger Rhaenyra not showing her shoulders in a design like this. And then when she's older, it gets a bit more risky, but yeah, very much fitting for this fictional universe. I like the embroidery around the neckline, and another cool thing is, if you look closely, you can see that the dress actually has very faint, darker red pattern, which gives it some texture, and yeah, overall, it's a really nice look on her. Next is this black dress that she often wears. This dress always reminded me of a dragon. This embellishment here kind of looks like a dragon's back, dragon mid-flight. Let me know what it reminds you of. And the shoulder design is pretty impressive too. We see this dress later in episode 10 too, and I think it's cool how they incorporated the embroidery and the slit on the upper layer so that it functions as a maternity gown. But yeah, the design around the neckline and shoulders is really iconic. This is one of my favorite pieces too because it's so interesting. It confuses me, but in a good way. It's this muted red overlay, I don't even know what to call it. It almost looks like she just wrapped herself in a blanket, but it comes across as really neat with all these different lines crossing over, and she's got it pinned with a brooch on the side. I don't know, is this some cool outfit design? Can you spot any historical or cultural inspirations? Or is she really just wrapped in a blanket and rocking the look? Last thing in this episode, I have to mention it because it's so awesome, especially for, well, a dying king. Viserys' outfit, where he's basically on his deathbed. We see so little of this yellow outfit, but we do get a close-up and we can see all the attention to details, from the color to these frilly cuffs. It almost looks like an 18th century men's dressing gowns for nobility. They really took no shortcuts, even for an outfit like this, in a scene like this where you can hardly see it, and I think that's pretty admirable. Alright, so in episode 9, we move on to Alicent's yet another green dress that she wears to Aegon's coronation. Her headdress, I'm pretty sure, is inspired by medieval headdresses, such as these, but I also think they changed the shape a bit and made it smaller, just so that it's a bit different and unique. Otherwise, the dress is very modest with the symbols of the faith, and then lots of different elements, like this velvet, dark green V-shaped part. She's got buttons on her sleeves and down the front. Overall, it's an interesting piece. And yeah, since it is the coronation, she looks more formal. Modest, conservative, pious, so I think it fits the occasion. Next we have Helena in this lovely blue. I find this to be an interesting color choice and I wonder what it might symbolize, but maybe I'm reading too much into it. But the first thing that comes to mind is she had the prophecy about the beast beneath the boards, and maybe she knew what it meant, so she dressed in Valerian blue as a sign of, "Don't burn me, I'm on your side." I bet you haven't heard this theory before. It's a stretch, I admit, but I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and theories in the comments below. In any case, it's a lovely dress, works really well for her. I'm always surprised at their fabric selection, and I think it's a clever compromise when it comes to the budget, similarly with Helena's gold yellow dress here. Getting modern fabrics for historical designs is of course cheaper than getting some naturally dyed, hand-embroidered, actual vintage fabrics, of course. But even with more modern fabrics, they managed to make it their own, and what we get are really great designs. Aegon's coronation outfit is all black, the dragon crest looks cool, the crown, I'm not so sure. I don't know what I was expecting from a coronation outfit, but frankly I was a little bit underwhelmed. I think so was he, judging by his scowl, but that's very subjective of course, so still, as an outfit, it's okay, it looks good. A more interesting observation that I had is that they tend to put adult Aegon in wools, silks, you know, regular cloth garments. But in contrast, Aemond is usually in leather. Just a little detail that I think works in an interesting way with their personalities. We have Alicent again, in yet another green. Now, this one looks a bit too modern for my taste, but it's a very pretty dress. I'm just not a fan of this mesh part around her neckline. It reminds me too much of this type of dresses. Again, beautiful, but I don't think the audience's first association should be modern in such a fantasy show. Now, from modern to very much not modern, Rhaenys's night shift. You know me, I love a good historical undergarment, and this night shift is on screen for just a couple of seconds, but it's another one of those cases where you can really appreciate the attention to even the least important and noticeable garments. Now, in the last episode, we have quite a few things to cover. First is Rhaenys's armor. It looks like a nice feminine armor. It's both red with dark gemstones incorporated into the design. The breastplate with the scales looks cool and all the pieces seem functional. I can believe that she can move her arms decently in it. I'm not really questioning anything about this piece, just marveling at it. So I think that's good. The outfits that the boys are wearing, Jacaerys and Lucerys, these half black and half red ones, gambesons I believe they are called, and I think making them red and black not only works well for House Targaryen, but it also works as a nod to historical medieval gambesons, which I couldn't find that much information on this, but apparently they could be two-colored, according to some images and according to Steel Mastery. A small detail that also stood out to me, even though it's pretty dark so you can't see it too well, but Lord Borros's daughters, who are wearing Baratheon colors, and these clearly medieval looking gowns, so again, it just goes to show the attention to the smallest details. Unlike another show where details only go up to your armpits. Okay, now let's finish this video with this epic shot. There was another cool one, we all know which one, but this one is just phenomenal. It's so menacing the way she's looming over the walls in fog and darkness. And even though it's awesome to see Vhagar on screen, the real surprise of this show for me was Aemond. Such a well-written character, and the actor I think does a fantastic job at portraying him. There are so many layers to him, from his wit to confidence and ambition to childhood wounds that drive him and really shape his character arc. I'm just really excited to see more of Aemond in the next season and frankly, all of the characters. It's gonna be a while, but I think a lot of us are looking forward to it. So in the meantime, let me know what you thought of House of the Dragon, which character was your favorite, and what you thought about the costumes. I'll see you soon.